It is my pleasure to introduce you to Edin Deljkic, the CEO and co-founder of Klika. Back in 2013, Edin and his three friends, Samir, Maya, and Zaharie, took a risk to leave their previous jobs and start their own company. They probably could not imagine that a business that started off with only 4 people would later turn into one of the fastest growing IT companies in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Today, Klika has a global HQ in Las Vegas and counts more than 220 employees. Their experience in both hardware and software spans many industries, going from fintech, banking, edtech, education, and healthcare, just to name a few. Until recently, Edin served as the president of Bit Alliance and currently serves as a board member of the same organization. This is the overarching organization of the IT industry in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Together with other CEOs and founders of IT companies, Edin set out to develop the business ecosystem in Bosnia and Herzegovina that would support the further growth of IT and other technology industries. This led to Edin being one of the representatives of our country at the Expo 2020 in Dubai, essentially pitching the proposition of partnering with our IT industry at one of the most prestigious business events in the world. Welcome to the podcast, Edin.
Thank you very much, Harris. I'm really happy to join you today, and thank you for the nice introduction. I wouldn't have done it better myself.
Yeah, I always try to do my best. We definitely have a lot of topics to talk about, but let's go back a few years, almost 10 years, to your founding of Klika. You founded it with a few of your friends, but I'm sure that there is an interesting story of how all that came to be. What was the context in which you decided to found your own company, and how did that happen?
Wow, it was a long time ago, 2013, sometimes during the summer was when the initial idea kicked in. But we have to be aware that those were completely different times. It's almost 10 years ago. And at that point in Bosnia, basically we had maybe 4 or 5 IT companies, and the industry itself in the country was completely different. Companies were really close, there was no interaction, there was no collaboration, IT community was pretty close. Employees didn't know what other companies are doing, what kind of projects are out there, what kind of technologies are out there, what could you do with your career and stuff like that. And before we officially came up with the idea to kick off Klika, basically that we wanted to do something differently. We had a really great job. We worked together in the same company for almost 8 years, me personally, and I was in a really high position at that company. That company still exists, and they are a really successful company still, and we have a really good relationships with the founders and our previous managers over there. But at that point, we wanted to do something differently. We saw that market needs to change, and there needs to be more open to it, that there needs to be more transparency, there need to be more challenges, and we thought that engineers should be treated differently and kind of have a different, in our opinion, a better work environment. And that's what idea of Klika came to our mind. The choosing the name of the company was really the most different thing to come up with. But the most important thing for us is that we were friends as well, and we studied at the same university, so we knew ourselves from college. We worked together at the previous company, and we were really close friends. So basically, this wasn't like just a business decision. This was like a really friendship and a business decision together. And we quit our jobs. We decided to take that risk, even though we as Bosnians are not really how do you say, like
risk takers,
risk takers, and known for taking risks, and especially in those times. Like today, things are a little bit different, but in those times, it was really like you had a really great, stable job, really great salary, and stuff like that. And it took some balls, what they like to say, to do that, to do something from scratch with zero money, and just believe in yourself, in your knowledge and expertise, and believe that you're going to make it. And now, 10 years later, we have a huge company, more than 220 people. We opened office in the United States. We're expanding our business internationally, and we are really proud of it.
Yeah, it sounds like you are maybe this second generation of IT entrepreneurs in the country that stemmed out of those companies that were really long-standing in the industry. But it's simple to have this friends and family feel with 4 people. But what's the challenge of scaling that to 220? How do you do that?
Well, it's always a challenging road, and we just talked about that today during the panel discussion that we had about the freedom and stuff like that. Because as company grows and as the business grows, company changes, and you have to be really agile and adjust to changes. It's not the same situation in 10 years ago when we were a small team working in the same office, 4 up to 10 people spending the whole days together working on projects, and that's what our life was at that point. Today things change, the market change, people changed, we grew up, we are older. We were just kidding that 10 years ago when we started the company, one of our partners, Samir, had 1 child at that point, and he was the only kid in our Klika family. Today we have 70 kids. So it means that all our employees that started the journey with us, who were students at that point, just came out of the university, eager to learn, eager to work, who really helped us build the company what it is today, are now completely grown people who are married, have families, kids, and their own private lives. So adjusting the company culture and making sure that you understand your employees and periods in life where they now are living and what are their priorities now is completely different. And it is mostly the most important thing that you need to keep in mind while building up and scaling up your business, to make sure that your people are still valued and that still feel free and valuable at the company.
Yeah, it makes sense. You would have to adjust, and it's really nice to hear that you try to take into account of where people are in their lives, because I'm sure they have different needs and expectations from the company, and you can expect different things from them, I guess, right? But looking at the industry itself and where it is today, you are now an established, let's say, player in the field. You have contacts, you even have the office in the United States. We are very, very global. What do you see going on right now that you as an executive and your team of executives are trying to adapt to or trying to predict and prepare the company for?
Well, I think one of the greatest challenges is around the future of work. So what does it mean? How our future of work in all industry will look like? Because going back to 2020, when pandemic hit, we just told everyone to go home, and we will start working remotely. And it was in tech industry, it was easier because all our clients are anyway outside the country, or somewhere in Europe or somewhere in the United States, and we were used to working remotely for years. But having the company, your people, and your team working in a remote setup was one of the most challenging things. How to stay connected, how to build a company culture and stuff like that. And now we see that other big companies in the world, like Apple, Google, Tesla, we're following everything what's happening on Twitter. We see that companies are starting to bring people in, and people are rebellious about it, because they say, if we worked remotely for 2-3 years now, why do we have to come back to the office? So this is one of the most challenging thing for everyone, not just us, but also including us, is how do we handle this future of work initiative, and what would our company will look like in next, let's say, 3 years, because this is the furthest we can plan, because we in this ever-changing world and what's going on. So we as a company are still fully remote. We let the people come in the office. We don't push anyone to come in yet, but we are following what's happening in the world. We're following what's happening in the markets. We were just been hit with a huge recession, huge inflation, not just in Bosnia, in the whole world. We see that there are huge layoffs around the world, even in tech companies. We are looking at what's happening in other companies. We are looking what's happening in the industry around the world. We are looking at what's happening with the market, and we are going to be really flexible and agile and make sure that whatever we do, it's good for our business and for our people.
Responding to the market is definitely the way to go, especially as you say, predicting in 3 years, who knows what will happen? Will we have enough internet to work from home, everyone? That might be a challenge. One interesting aspect of moving to more remote work is the office spaces you have. I know that Klika has a pretty nice office space, but how has that transformed? Have you done anything differently with your office space since the remote work started? Is it used in any different way than before?
Well, we are kind of a little bit different than other companies in terms that we have this set of work and business that we do in terms of hardware development and testing. So we have a lot of equipment. So we did talk about like cutting the office down because we have huge office space in Sarajevo. We have 3 floors here in Capital Tower. We have 3 floors in Banja Luka in our hub over there. So it's a huge office space. And we were doing some reconciliation and seeing like maybe we could cut some costs, around the office space because the rents are huge, of course. But we noticed that because of the equipment and because of the amount of people that want to come back to the office, basically we don't have that flexibility, to cut down the space. We are even thinking, do we need more space? So we are currently somewhere in the middle, but we will not make any major changes this or next year.
Yeah, and it's interesting you have a bit of different needs compared to some maybe software companies because you do a lot of hardware, right? And the fact that you are so invested into hardware development as well means that you are probably able to access more markets and more industries with the services and products you would work on, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely an interesting area for us. We have a really strong team, and they're mostly focused on hardware design and the firmware development. And this is what we really do in the IoT industry in the United States. This is where our expertise is really around. And also we are doing some of it in the area of people and the vehicle access with some of the clients in Europe. But the pool of talent, we know in IT industry in Bosnia, it's really small and the competition is really tough. And when you scale down, like when you look at the software development, it's really small pool of talent. But when you go into the hardware and the firmware development, then it's even smaller. So it's really hard for us, to scale that business, but we don't want to give up because this is something that is really interesting to us. We really like to learn new technologies. We would really like to build our expertise to be a really expert that can build any kind of a product that someone wants to launch to the market.
Let's try to put the constraints of staffing and people aside. For you as the CEO, if you were looking at the current industries and the current trends, is there something you would like to test the waters in, or have Klika try a few projects in a specific either technology or part of industry, or an integration of software in some industry or hardware in some industry, making it a bit more smarter, let's say? If you had the people, where would you like to go?
We have two parts of that. So one is the technology. So what are the trends and where the technology is going, and this is something that we are really trying to follow the trends and to get involved with new technologies like blockchain and Web3 and other technologies that are really popular today on the market. But in terms of the industries, always the philosophy of our company and the mission was to go into the industries that really make people's lives better. So we are proud, really proud of some of the projects that we are currently working on with clients that are actually improving everyday people's lives. So we are not that much excited about building social networks or building apps like Twitter, Facebook, TikTok and stuff like that, but really going into the industries that can make a really big change in the planet and for us as a species. So like going into the healthcare industry, IoT is a huge thing, and this is something where we really are heavily involved, building smart homes, smart devices smart vehicles and stuff like that. And other would be like going and working with space companies. This would be something huge because the space is the future. So we will see where we can take it to.
Yeah, hopefully that happens one day. I would be very proud to hear that Klika is a part of some space mission. That would be all for today and our interview with Edin Deljkic, the CEO and co-founder of Klika. Thank you, Edin, for joining me today and sharing your views on the challenges that are upcoming or the industries that are worth taking a look at. It's really nice to hear that you guys like to focus on projects that improve conditions of people, not only technology and not only the revenue. So it's really nice to hear that. It was a really nice conversation with you, Edin.
Thank you, Haris. It was really a pleasure for me as well. And I hope that your future is also nice and bright, whatever you decide to take it to.
Thank you very much. Hopefully it is. And hopefully we see each other at the Futures Leader Summit, Edin. Thank you for joining me on today's podcast. It was really a pleasure talking to you.